The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Manoj, we are live.
Uh, yes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar, the second in the series of three that the Indo-American Chamber has come out with. My name is Manoj Gidwani. I'm the co-chair of the Business Continuity Committee at the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, the Western India Council. Welcome you all to this webinar on the impact of COVID-19, specifically with regards to cybersecurity and data protection. Our regional president, Naushad Panjwani, could not be present for this webinar today due to technical difficulties, like all of us from time to time face. So he's not going to be joining us, but we'll chip in. We will try to come in as and when possible. As mentioned earlier, we've started, with a series of webinars to address your challenges and offering you possible solutions and advice from the right experts. On Monday, we had a webinar, which is typically in terms of the finance and accounting side, which was well received and well conducted. The one today is on the cybersecurity and data protection, and we do have one coming up on Monday, which Raki will be sending out the invites for later today, which is mainly on the legal side. So we're covering up these three in the initial series of the webinars that we're running with the Indo-American Chamber. I think one of the key reasons that cybersecurity and data protection is more and more important today is because most of us are working remotely, and by us working remotely, the various measures and security measures which were put in our machines, etc., while we were in offices, may be at risk, and therefore it was thought that it is necessary for us to have a webinar that we can bring out what are the security risks and what are the measures that organizations should take into account so as to move away from these security concerns that would be there. So with that particular background, I am now going to ask our industry experts, Ram Prasad from Expansion, which is a UST global company, and Krish Bhat, who's my colleague at Nexdigm SKP, and who heads our cybersecurity practice over there, to take forward this particular webinar. But before I close, I hope everyone is safe and healthy and continue to keep safe at this particular point of time that all of us are in. So over to you, Ram. I would want you to take it up from there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Manoj. Good morning, everyone. So clearly we have a large audience from across the country attending this webinar today. So two things are very evident. One, the topic is very important, that so many people have taken the time to attend that. And two, more importantly, technology is a huge enabler. Despite all the constraints and challenges, it is allowing us to have a seamless gathering of a large pan-India audience who can meet and collaborate. So let me set some more context further to what Manoj just mentioned. So work from home as a concept is not a new novel idea. I mean, several technology companies for a very long time have remote workers working from home. So to that extent, we have the required infrastructure, guidelines, and security measures that have been put in place. Having said that, in recent weeks, due to the corona and the COVID-19 pandemic, work from home became not just inevitable, but it was also implemented pretty instantaneously because the lockdown itself was enforced instantaneously. So many of our companies did not really have the time to review our standard operating procedures. We had to just quickly set it up. It was the work from home approach was almost like setting up temporary shelters, right? You just look for minimum necessary resources to get it up and running. It's so many IT organizations or IT departments were probably busy making sure that dongles were made available, desktops were there for the users working from home or laptops, and ensuring that the basic infrastructure facilities have been provided. The reason is very evident that despite all the constraints, business goes on. Business continuity is a prerequisite, and we are all obliged to meet our customers' needs and also make sure that the employees are enabled to do that. So having said that, I mean, while we got all these temporary shelters called work from home enabled, the fact of the matter is we live in a world of information and technology where data is probably the biggest tangible asset for most organizations. So even during normal times, as you're aware, data violations, hacking, and compromises have led to significant business risks globally in very sophisticated organizations. Now it's a little bit of free-for-all, given that everything is fairly decentralized. IT has very little control over how people sit and work on their phones. And many of them are probably using their own personal devices. That leads to even more opportunities for hacking and data violation. So at the same time, we're all aware that when we execute mutual agreements with our customers, data security and information security is a mandatory clause. And then guidelines such as GDPR are very stringent. But it's not just customer data. I'm also referring to company data, employee information, personal data, right? So I think that it is time we need to be able to strike that balance between making it easy for our employees to work from homes, at the same time ensuring that business continues, but more importantly also ensure that our regulatory and statutory compliances, whether it is data protection, GDPR, or whatever various norms that you may have, are also complied with. So in my experience and in talking to a lot of large organizations and small organizations, companies which have got very strong, resilient IT systems and policies have the right tools and solutions in place. So, they probably got this done pretty seamlessly, the work from home across the organization very seamlessly. And case in point is my own organization. Not only could we, start 100% work from home from day one, but we also have the right tools and solutions, even commercial tools that we can take to market to enable work from home. But what about the rest of us? So how do we balance between business continuity and data security and the ease that I just referred to? So to know more about this, we have Krishnanand Bhat, Chief Information Security Advisor from Nexdigm. So I'll pass it on to him to hear his perspectives on the matter, understand what are the industry best practices, what are the minimum things that we need to do or make sure we do not do under the circumstances. And followed by that, if there are question and answers or questions around it, we'll be very happy to answer them. So Krish, over to you.
Yeah. Good morning to all of you. Let me just open up the presentation. So, work from home, strange times that we are living in, and strange phenomena that each one of us is undergoing. In fact, it's an experience on its own for everybody, each one of us. And there are a lot of activities which we all aspire to do otherwise, but because of the lockdown, we are handling everything online. For example, this entire knowledge sharing session, no one would have ever imagined that you would be using a GoToWebinar collaboration tool and logging in to get insights besides the routine attending a session and getting the comforts of taking space and time off and augmenting your knowledge in a focused manner. So this is challenging times. These are interesting times, and these are also times which help us learn and enhance the way we as Homo sapiens have all along done in the stages of evolution, that is survive. So basically what happens when an organization decides without a short or without adequate preparation to move its entire workforce to operate from outside the office premises? The first and foremost risk that emanates from it is limited controls on assets operating as work from home. The assets could be your mobile assets like laptop. It could be your desktops. More importantly, people. So the various controls of checking in, checking out, secluded environment, workplace privacy controls, physical access controls. These are the first barriers that evaporate, and physical access controls, which is considered as the first level of defense, is no more there. The next level of defense, that is access to the technology infrastructure of the organization in terms of connectivity, in terms of monitoring, in terms of recourse to limitations of access, just evaporates. So a lot of us would have been working in the office environment where there were so many restrictions in terms of which sites one can access, what is the areas that you can access. All those logical controls are the next level of barriers or controls which simply don't exist anymore. Suddenly an individual finds himself with too much of freedom at times or too much of limitations, both extremities, and is not able to handle. The ease of operating in a stable infrastructure and environment that usually an office space provided no more exists. And this phenomena is likely to continue for an extended period of time, as every day each one of us is still trying to come to terms with how this entire coronavirus story pans out and eventually comes to an end. So the biggest risks that people have is lack of controls. Everybody feels controls are difficult to manage, the controls are an irritant and a hurdle. But today in an environment where there are no controls, people are finding it even more difficult, because nobody knows what is the boundaries to which we can extend or we can work. What are those limits which we can stretch without causing an harmful impact on our own selves? There is limited access to the risk and support teams that used to monitor, preempt, manage, and handle issues for us. Connectivity, which was a weekend leisure activity, is now become an everyday issue or problem or challenge that people need to go through. So these are some risks that we all have started living with. This being the 10th day or the 9th day of the lockdown, we all have experienced some experiences in stabilizing ourselves to this new work culture that is operating in a lockdown from home. Most of us are connected through unsecured networks. So the public network that we usually use, maybe the public service provider network that we use, be it MTNL, Dolphin, or Airtel Broadband, or Jio, are not as secure as your office lease lines would have been. And these networks are usually open channels, and they also carry the risks of standing in an open channel. With global internet access restriction not in place, people have access to various websites, some trustworthy, some untrustworthy, eventually leading to a damage, the repercussions of which could be after resume work or could be during the lockdown time. Bigger challenges for IT and risk teams and the management has been data sharing. So information once considered confidentially, information one considered privy to an organization's core, information one considered crucial and of value, can now be shared without being detected or monitored. There could be contractual obligations which may need to be reread, which may need to be relooked into, which will also lead to several unintended consequences, unknown and known. So this is one of the major issues that is an outcome of the new work environment. A lot of phishing attacks have started whereby people can be victims of ransomware, they can be victims of trojans, they can be victims of money scams. A lot of email messages, fake messages are going around, and for a person who is not alert, it looks like a genuine message, and he clicks on the link, he opens up a door for disaster. Non-compliance policies. Whatever technology architecture that we operated on, it used to work well when it was inside a controlled office network environment. Right now, the central monitoring teams have no visibility on the compliance to various office controls, logical access controls, administrative controls, policies that are being pushed, patches that are being pushed, whether the assets that are distributed across are having the intended protection and the level of threat that could have been monitored, managed, preempted prior to this is now effective or not. Another big problem that people are facing is antivirus. It's the most basic thing, but we really don't invest in checking up whether this needs to be updated regularly. In the absence of central monitoring mechanisms, it is not very clear whether the machines are regularly being protected for threats, whether my virus signatures are being updated in a manner to prevent the known attacks. Are the antivirus software applications in a position to update quickly the known unknowns? And are our employees aware of the known unknowns? Dependencies and reliance has increased on high availability firewalls, which also means investment, which all organizations may not be privy to. Secure VPN, another technology which is being spoken about and also used by organizations who had some basic level of maturity in terms of IT security, in terms of operating from outside. But that has not been the case or true for all organizations. And there are quite a number of organizations who had to invest in VPN technology, and it was all a short-sighted investment. At times, it was done in a hurry without going through the usual due diligence process, which has also opened up a Pandora box of risks. Soft VPNs, soft open VPNs, misconfigured VPNs, VPNs which are not having definitive rules defined. All of this has led to an environment which could lead to issues at a later point in time. Enhance surveillance and monitoring tools. This is something which most organizations usually do not invest in, but in times like this is the need of the hour. So what could be done as an easy to handle and operate activity would now need to be done manually. IT infra teams need to enhance their monitoring activities. They may have to rewrite some of the scripts to ensure that alerts, event alerts, lapses can be preempted and detected in advance, rather than doing a detection post an incident. The action needed: high availability firewalls, pre-logon client VPNs. Now, this is a technique where, irrespective of the public internet you are using, you are compulsorily forced to log on to the organizational VPN, because of which a private tunnel gets created between your public internet gateway and the organization's internet infrastructure. So you are onboarded onto a protected organizational environment at all points in time. Enhance server monitoring. Enhance network monitoring from a perspective of speed, latency, usage needs to be done. Availability being the biggest challenge at this point of time for the infrastructure team. Work from home paradox. Each one of us is going through this paradox where network is an issue, space to sit and operate in an environment similar to office is becoming a challenge. Managing our teams, especially for managers, is becoming an issue. A lot of the cities in India do not have 24/7 power connectivity. So that also becomes a very big challenge in terms of operating business as usual. A lot of areas in this country have poor connectivity, or a connectivity which is not continuous all the time. That also becomes a big issue in terms of operational handling. It also is a challenge for people trying to balance between optimizing their productivity and at the same time being aware of the risks of operating in an environment which has little or no controls. Browsing unwanted websites, downloading applications or software which are available as freeware or shareware, accessing chat rooms and various public chatbots. These are all risks that come through unintended browsing. Phishing email attacks, information spoofed, appearing to be a genuine email conversation from a colleague in the organization, is increasing. Enhanced email protection systems at this point of time is a very big and difficult investment to be made. So employee awareness and individuals awareness, security awareness, communication awareness has become the need of the hour. Data breaches, knowingly and unknowingly, is another risk that needs to be handled. Non-patched systems. So systems with poor updates of operating system, poor updates of antivirus and other controls, these are becoming challenges which each one of us is grappling with. Without compromising on the productivity and optimization in the way we handle and work, we are expected to deliver in this environment as business as usual. That itself is a challenge. In fact, there has been an observation that people are working more when they are operating from home rather than working with a balance. So work-life balance, family balance has gone for a toss. So as the risks. Some of the controls that are recommended and are being used by organizations at large. One is cloud, access to the cloud. There is a misnomer that when I start handling things from the cloud or operating out of the cloud, everything is protected. It need not be the case. So one needs to be mindful, and IT teams and the risk team has to roll out policies which enable proper access controls for cloud access. Dual authentication is something which is recommended. Having encrypted drives is another recommended standard, and absolutely important to prevent privacy breaches is to provide need to know access as much as is relevant and necessary should be the mantra, rather than provide all access to operate business as usual. The next control which is most effective is a secure VPN. Ideally, a hardware-based client token mechanism of VPN is the best. Pre-log-on connect VPN is the most safest as of now. And organizations can also look for enabling two-factor authentication, which is not available for an additional fee, but it's a feature that needs to be enabled. Desktops that needed to be moved in this lockdown scenario have their own peculiar challenges. One of the most common challenges was enabling wireless on desktops. So one had to invest in additional wireless adapters that has to be connected to the USB port for a desktop to operate using wireless. Now, enablement of USB ports led to opening of endpoints, and there is a dilemma in terms of IT infra. How do we control this leakage? Patch and antivirus updates to desktops do not happen as desired. This is one more of the challenges, and monitoring them using a CM solution, an endpoint solution, is a big investment. Not all organizations would have the budget and appetite to do the same. So an easy recourse or an alternative could be to have hardware-based VPN connected to these desktops to ensure that these machines are onboarded onto the organizational infrastructure. Second alternative could be to use these desktop machines as virtual connection machines, and users encouraged to operate on organization's environment itself. Third alternative could be to use solutions like Citrix, ConnectMe, to optimize and minimize the risk of using desktops. Some general precautions that need to be taken. Fake messages on WhatsApp, kindly beware. Information technology teams to communicate regularly with resources about the do's and don'ts. Be aware of cloud risks. technologies operating from cloud need not necessarily be secure by default. One needs to be mindful about what is being accessed, what is being downloaded, what kind of applications are being downloaded. Beware and not download unauthorized applications. They may cause areas of concern at a later point in time. Reread your contractual obligations. If your contractual obligations require you to adhere to certain level of security posture in the current environment, it may not likely be the same. Be mindful to communicate that to your end customers and users. Also, reiterate and enhance your monitoring to see as much as you can align to your contractual obligations. A lot of organizations who were operating from client locations, who had people operating from client locations, clients were not prepared to share their assets to work from home. But they did agree on a middle path where employees were allowed to use their own devices. This creates a very peculiar scenario where one needs to use his own assets but adhere to the risk posture as dictated by the client. And for organizations which are handling this kind of scenarios, they need to be extra careful. They also need to be mindful about what kind of accesses their employees are being provided of client information and how they are going to handle or address that. Be very careful of the emails that ask you to transfer money, that give you advice on medication, or that speak about enhancing the effectiveness of your security posture. They may not be true. Also be aware of emails that look genuine coming from Microsoft or your service provider asking you to change your password. The Android phone infrastructure is more exposed and prone to risk and would require you to be extra alert. For the IT infra team and the risk team, enhancement in monitoring your assets, a plan of how to sanitize the assets once resume back to business operations takes place is most imminent and important. Don't plan the resumption in a hurry. Allow adequate time and sanitization measures to be taken care before the assets get reintroduced into your office infrastructure. Some good practices that each one of us should diligently follow. Manually update your antivirus on a daily basis. It's a good habit to look at the antivirus update once in a day. Refrain from access to unknown and unwanted sites. Sites which you would not access during the normal course of your business activity. Kindly follow the same good habit now. Do not log on to free and public hotspot Wi-Fis. This is one more area of concern. These are trying times. And at times, without connectivity, we all look and feel like a dinosaur. But be mindful about the Wi-Fi that you are using, and as far as possible, detest from getting on free and public hotspots. And lastly, stay vigilant, alert, and always reconfirm before you act, because these are difficult times and we all need to be vigilant to come out of that safe. So friends, that's all that I had for today, and open to questions.
Thank you, Krish. Thank you, Ram, for your remarks. There are a few questions that are coming up right now on our screen. I'll just read them out to you, and Ram and Krish, you can answer them. The first question is, do you anticipate that after this experience, a lot of companies may decide to move some functions permanently to be made as work from home?
I could take that question. Yes. Yes is the answer, and depends on the end experience of the organization. So if they find that work from home has helped in enhancing or optimizing the productivity of its outcomes, it has helped employees balance their time more effectively because the travel time is saved and avoided, and the organization has invested in the right kind of technology which helps them balance between risk and employees operating from home. Yeah, Jugal.
Thank you very much for that answer, Krish. The question that we have, I don't know if you or Ram can take this again. Can you share any recent example during the lockdown period or any such incident of breach of cybersecurity? And if you have any excerpts to give in terms of how it was resolved.
Okay, I'll take that question.
Ram, I think you're on mute. You need to be unmuted.
Ram, you would like to take the question?
I haven't heard of any, Krish. Maybe you may want to answer if you have heard of any.
So here, there has been no reported big incident of data breach in this lockdown environment, but definitely there have been cases of phishing attacks where employees have been victims of sharing their personal information on the internet, the outcome of which probably we will come to know over a period of time. So there have been incidents where genuine looking employees have accessed and clicked upon, and these challenges will also be later on.
Thank you for that response, Krish. I was having some difficulties. Sorry, we cannot hear you that well. There seems to be some disturbance in your audio. Okay, we have.
I'm having a.
We have one more question from the audience. What is the most commonly seen cyber threat that has emerged over the last 9 days? Any inputs on that, Krishan Ram?
I would reckon phishing is going to be the most common one and most vulnerable for most people. I have not heard of anything more dramatic than that. Krish?
With you, Ram. In fact, what has happened is there are a lot of phishing attacks which are coming. I could maybe just elaborate on what you have said. So, reputed organizations, you will get invite to a webinar or a seminar from a reputed organization asking you to register for it, but the email ID is actually spoofed. So people will have to be extremely careful when they click on web links and submit their details, email IDs, mobile numbers, their location or place of work. When they're registering for a webinar, they need to revalidate before they click on these webinar emails, because there have been cases where you have had phishing attacks which are enticing people to click. That is one. The second attack, which has happened in the past 9 days, which has not come in the public domain, is there have been criminal or state-sponsored actors working from our neighboring country who have been trying to, one is attack our banking and financial institutions, that is the technology infrastructure. Second, they have also been indulged in spreading fake messages. Two countries in particular have been extremely, I would say, active in this. So, state-sponsored attacks. One is China, which has been launching big-time cyber hack attacks on banks and financial institutions in North America and Europe. And the second is Pakistan, which has been launching cyber attacks on the finance technology infrastructure of India and other Southeast Asian countries. During these 9 days, there were 4 new virus signatures that were discovered. They remained undetected by antivirus softwares like Symantec and McAfee, the most popular ones. They were detected by less popular antivirus softwares like QuickHeal, Kaspersky, and Microsoft. So this is what has happened in the world we live in the last 9 days. Hope that addresses the question.
Thank you, Ram and Krish, for those excerpts. There's another question that's come up which says, what methods exist for server monitoring, especially when the cyber attack is designed to bypass the alert system by the monitoring software? Krish, any inputs on that?
So it is back to basics. Any monitoring that we do relies on the logs that are captured. Over a period of time, people and IT teams have placed over-reliance on softwares which do the same thing. They collect based on the information that is aggregated and collected. They try to take out intelligent answers for the rules and thresholds defined by us. In times like this, where you feel that monitoring mechanisms may not work the way they were supposed to work because of the open distributed environment that each one of us been operating in, it requires some dedicated team members as an alternate method to continuously look at the logs and the events that are unnatural or that are not as per the usual trend or pattern, and start building up a preventive and a preemptive control strategy. There needs to be investment in alternate manual methods at this point in time, so that anomalies that did not exist can be detected, and the ingenuity of a human mind to analyze can never be overcome by an application or a software or a set of defined rules. So I think that is how you need to manage it. Not all can be captured, but at least the deltas and the thresholds that we feel can be addressed.
Ram, do you have any comments to share on that?
Yeah, there is one other thing. I mean, going back to the earlier questions, I think this is a very important time when IT departments may want to over-communicate with their employees on the risks of downloading third-party software, pirated software, or be aware of what phishing sites would look like, email would look like. I think more awareness and education is going to be required at this time, because more often than not, as you're aware, that when people click on links, assuming it to come from an authentic source, they are ignorant, right? And two, they don't really know how to distinguish between a genuine link coming from your banker or your insurance company versus a phishing email. I think awareness, increased awareness, and consistent communication is going to be very important at this time.
So I'll illustrate another example. Because of this recently moratorium introduced by RBI, there have been some banks who did not have the technology to capture this information in business as usual. So they have resorted to setting up Google survey forms to collect information of people who are requesting for moratorium. So now people need to be extra alert, extra mindful whether these are genuine or these are fake. I just illustrated an example.
All right. Thank you for your comments, Ram and Krish. A few more questions. I'll just put this one. Probably Krish, you can answer this. This is a question for one of the people in the audience. How do we sanitize our systems once the team comes back to the office? Any inputs on that? Any comments to make?
Yes, so there are some basics that you need to always look for. Update your system, so whether related to the latest operating system patches as is intended, whether their antivirus has been updated. You need to scan for any unauthorized software or applications that have been loaded onto their machines. You need to also take an input or feedback from the user whether he is experiencing some abnormal peculiarities in the way the machine is operating. I think these 4 broad level points you are able to address and then allow the machine after a full antivirus scan to connect to your office infrastructure. It would be a very good preventive control that you have exercised.
Would you want to throw some light on that?
Yeah, I agree to what Chris said.
All right. We'll move to the next question. The question is, if a user has a personal laptop and is working from home, would it be safe to give VPN access on our server?
It would be ideal. In an ideal world, it would
Sorry, I think Ram is having some audio difficulty. Krish, can you repeat that again, please?
So in an ideal world, we would have said that it would not be safe. But in the times that we are in, it would be good. But the VPN from the personal laptop should be restricted to only those access areas that are necessary for the person to operate and work.
Agree. One other point that is important is in an ideal world, you do not give access to the USB drives so that people can download critical company data into their personal devices. So it's going to be important to make sure that confidential information cannot be downloaded outside the perimeter. So that there has to be some control at the end point.
Thank you very much, Ram and Krish.
So Jugal, I'd just like to conclude on that, is need to know and relevant to have. I think this is the mantra for giving access on a personal laptop.
Okay. There are a few more questions. I'll just take a couple of them. One of the questions that somebody's put up is, are you aware if there are any cases of ransomware attack during the lockdown attack in India? Are you also aware if there have been similar international attacks? Ram and Krish, if you have any light to throw on these questions.
Nothing that I'm aware of, Manoj.
Okay.
Same here. There has been no news of any kind of recent attacks.
Great. Another technical question, is there a mechanism to ensure that employees don't access servers through public network? If a customer does not permit or is not inclined to work from home, what are the measures that can be offered in order to provide him comfort? What would the remote access policy in such a scenario generally comprise of?
There are too many questions in this. Let me break it down. One part is talking about
Would you want me to read the
remote access.
question to you again in smaller pieces, Krish?
No. So one part is talking about remote access policies.
Correct.
The second part is talking about unwillingness of an individual to use his infrastructure to work from home. It's a paradoxical statement. Remote access policies, as Ram rightly pointed out earlier also, endpoint protections have to be in place, USB accesses have to be disabled, organization has to be extremely mindful about what kind of access is being provided, and confidential information or information classified as confidential should be shared on need to know with a time limit of access. Access has to be specific to applications that are required for business usage of an employee. This could broadly address your remote access policy. If someone is unwilling to work from home, that's a management call that needs to be taken. That has nothing to do with cybersecurity or otherwise.
Yeah, further to what Krish mentioned, again, you may want to, from a customer standpoint, categorize the criticality of their data, right? Some of it may be simple source code with less sensitivity, and some of it may be customer data or their customers' data, right? So I think if the data is extremely sensitive, we need to err on the right side and make sure that we do not provide access remotely, especially if the environment is not secure.
Thank you for those remarks, Ram and Krish. Another question that we have is, how can one actually identify a phishing email from a real email? Are there any thoughts that you can share for our audience?
I believe there is a lot of online courses and information about how to identify a phishing email or phishing notes. But Krish, anything else that you're aware of that you can share with them?
One basic check that you can do is that you can hover on the email address, right click and try to read the email address, because most of the time what looks like a name, the email address may be something very absurd. So that is one of the commonly used approaches that you can take with the limited technology that is available to you. Second is to be more alert and aware, because if you are getting mails from someone who's been not regularly communicating with you during these times, specifically asking for information or sharing of your information, it would be advisable to maybe speak to him and then act on it, rather than trying to respond to it on a priority. So pause, look, and act. This is, I think, something that a person may have to follow during these times, because not all mails are phishing mails, but this is one easy way to identify it. So you click on it, you right click on it, or you press the reply all button, then you right click and try to read the email ID. You will definitely understand that there has been something which is not appropriate. I think this is what could be a good starting point. And then if you feel still it is suspicious, report it to your IT team for them to act on it.
All right. Thank you so much. I think we'll close the Q&A round for now, looking at the time is almost over for the webinar. I would request either Ram or Manoj to kind of just give the closing remarks, please.
Yeah, I can do that. So first of all, thanks for the time to webinar. I think it is very important that while we focus on business continuity, data security and data protection is equally important, if not more. At the same time, let's do everything possible to wade through this situation. Hopefully, it's not going to last for long. And last but not the least, I request you all to stay safe and just hope for the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ram. Thank you, Krish. Thank you, Manoj. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
We look forward to having you.
Everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Krish. Thank you, Ram. Thank you, Vikas. Thank you, Manoj.
Thank you.